Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Opera 101, Cleveland Opera Theater's Monday through Friday series, where we talk a little bit about opera, certain aspects of the business, from a performer's side, from a business side, from all sorts of sides, and answer your questions about it. My name is Dean Buck, and I am the assistant conductor and chorus master for Cleveland Opera Theater. I want to start out by asking you all to please consider tuning in tomorrow for our ongoing series, Maestro's Corner, where our music director, Maestro Domenico Boyajan, will be interviewing internationally renowned soprano Dina Kuznetsova. Dina has sung all over the world, and we were lucky enough to work with her in our production of Madama Butterfly a couple of years ago. So definitely worth checking out. And in light of that, thought today we would just give a little preview about some of the things that happen between a conductor and a soloist in the rehearsal process. We've talked a little bit about this in some previous installments, but we'll go in a little bit of detail. So at the core of opera, we essentially have storytelling, and that's our goal. Our goal is to tell the story while giving credence to the amazing music that is being used to tell this story. This requires a really strong connection and a lot of agreement between the conductor, who is, at the helm controlling everything, and the singers, who are actually the ones telling the story, actually the ones singing, going through all of this insanity on stage. So it's a little more complicated than something like a symphony, where the orchestra's in one place. They can watch you at any time. Not to say symphonic music is easier than opera. It has its own host of difficulties, but there's a lot more things we have to take into consideration. There's staging. A singer can be at any part of the stage, and sometimes it's harder to see a conductor. So these are things we need to take into account. We've talked before about how directors and conductors kind of talk these sorts of things through to get something conducive. But a few of the things that singers and conductors need to be on the same page for is, one, tempo. Typically in an ensemble, the conductor really dictates the tempo, because there are multiple singers. Everyone probably has their own perfect tempo. So when there's more than one, sometimes in a duet, singers can have their freedom. But especially take, for example, like a finale to a Mozart or Rossini opera, where you have most of the entire cast singing together. The singers really need to hone into the conductor and work with the tempo that they set. In an aria, however, where it's the singer doing their thing, the conductor and singer get to work together a lot to determine the tempo. Typically, it's totally not uncommon, and it's a good practice for the conductor to ask the singer, what do you think? Do you want to do a little slower here? Do you want to go a little faster here? Or for the singer just to say, hey, I know you want to do it here, but I'm having a little trouble at this tempo. I just feel the expression so much better if it's just a hair slower. Totally fine. This is part of the fun of making opera, is this collaborative way of doing it, that it isn't the conductor just saying you have to do it this tempo, or else. We talk, we have a conversation, and it's a really fun. It's not, people talk about divas, opera personalities, and most of the time that's not the case. Most of the time people are really excited to work together and really excited to discover this performance of this piece, and maybe someone sheds light on doing something a little different than you had thought about it before. That can be an amazing discovery, to be like, wow, I always heard this like this, but now you're making me think, this is something else. Granted, there are times where it's over the top. There are times where a singer just wants to do too much, and the conductor has to say, that's, I don't think that's quite appropriate with what Puccini wrote or what Verdi wrote. We need to tone it back a bit. And there are times where a conductor wants to go so fast that the singer's just like, I cannot do it that fast. If an aria like Bartolo's aria in Barbiere di Siviglia, or Aprite un po' quegli occhi, Figaro's Act 3 aria from Notte di Figaro, there's a lot of really fast singing, and sometimes the conductor just wants to go so fast that the singer's like, I can't spit the words out that fast. So it's, there are limits, but within those limits, we work together to determine what we can do. Other issues that come about for a lot of repertoire, especially both Baroque opera and the type of opera that we call bel canto, or beautiful singing, is what it translates to. We use that term to refer to the operas of the Italian operas of the early to mid 19th century, mostly Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini. There is a lot of room for variation. In this type of music, it was very well understood that what was written in the score was not all for the singer to do. And especially in Rossini and a lot of Donizetti, singers have freedom to do their own variations. So typically the conductor and the singer need to get together to discuss what is going to happen for this, because the conductor needs to know what the singer is doing. And if they're looking at something different in the score, well, you got to be able to anticipate, because a lot of times the orchestra waits, the singer sings their cadenza, and then the orchestra enters, or you land together. And if the conductor doesn't know what the singer is going to do, it's hard to make sure it stays together. Granted, certain things happen in performance. We've all been there. Performance energy sets in and takes over, and sometimes someone will do something different. It's part of the art form. It happens. We try to, anticipate as much as we can, but there will always be things we can't anticipate. So with this preparation, you have to be on the fly. You have to be constantly, as a conductor, you have to be constantly engaged with what the singer is doing. And in the event they take a little more time than they were doing in rehearsal, or throw in something extra in their cadenza, you just have to be ready. Because as the fella says, the show must go on, and it's our job to make sure the audience doesn't know that it was something different. And it can be a really exciting moment when something like that happens. So we, conductors and singers who regularly work together, kind of develop a rapport where we can anticipate. We know what it feels like when someone is going to get off a held high note. We can read the body language of the singer. We can read what's happening in the sound of their voice. And the singers know that in the event something goes a little haywire, that's the point to just kind of stop their staging for a sec, turn and watch the conductor, and get back on. It's a really interesting kind of psychological vibe, for lack of a better term, that we have with one another. And it's to me, it's one of the most fun parts about making art, about making opera and working in the field. Definitely tune in tomorrow to see Maestro Boyajan's conversation with Dina Kuznetsova, where there will be a lot more in-depth discussion of these sorts of things. I know Dina has a ton of experience and a ton of stories working with a ton of conductors, and just to hear the singer's side of this, and to hear singer and conductor in conversation going into far more detail, it should be really, really fun. So be sure to do that. Thanks again, as always, for tuning in. As is always the case, send us any questions you might have, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Be safe.